Okay, hey everyone, happy Friday. I hope you guys are having a good one. We see our two guests are here, and they're almost as cozy as their nameplates are against each other down there. I get to finish sharing this on Twitter, etc., and then in all the discords. This is what they call. This is what the wealthy call needing a producer, but I don't. I can't be a producer. It's just me right now. So I gotta do it all myself. But how are you, gentlemen, this fine day?
Doing great.
Yes.
Thank you.
You?
Pretty good. I mean, this has been an overall very crazy day. Unfortunately, I did have a funeral early in the day to go to, but after that, it was just right here, right to do a previous podcast, right to do this, and then it's been it's kind of a crazy day. So, yeah, share it, and also the Discord has been doing a bunch of like people are restless. I've noticed there's a lot of like, there's a lot of like pent up energy I feel people have. So yeah. I think that hopefully there'll be a lot more chipper after this show, because this is it's funny because the Masternode shares the staking in Dash, especially easy staking kind of thing, has been something that's been on people's minds for a very long time. And then now with the one-click staking type thing in the wallet, I think that's been great. And then to have the prospect of being able to do trustless or trust minimized staking like now-ish or very soon, and just to hear about, like, I think that's a good sign for a lot of people. I think a lot of people are very, very happy to see that. It's like forward momentum that's not just from the core team trying to ship Evo all the time, And yeah, it's a good time. Let's see.
Yeah, so
speaking of good time, Onetime's watching. Hey, Onetime.
One viewer. Yay.
One time.
One viewer, one time.
That explains the username.
Yes. Well, there's a different explanation for that as well, but that's its own thing as well. Just wait like one or so more minutes for people to
And this is
jump
what,
on.
podcast 199.
Yes.
Oh, damn it.
We should have waited one, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that was our own fault. We couldn't make it next week. It didn't work. I don't forget why. But
Yeah. I mean, and that was an arbitrary time. I was just like, oh, that's like a month since the last Dash podcast. Let's do that. And so this is like 4 weeks maybe, like, which is usually like a month, but it wasn't this time. And so that means that at some point we're going to have a 200th episode podcast.
Yay.
And very soon. And that'll be in December. Hopefully, Evo platform will be launched in feature complete, release candidate 1, and enter its testing phase by then. That would be a good hope. All
yes.
right. We are how many minutes in? 5 minutes, that's enough. All right. Let's go hit the intro and then officially start. So, hey everyone, once again, happy Friday to everyone. I'm joined by the one and only Peter Vesborg and the one and only Andreas Rud, the geniuses behind everyone's favorite Dash staking project, CrowdNode. How's it going, guys?
doing great. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, so
Thanks for having us.
the first time you're actually IRL, you're, next to each other in real life. And yeah, so definitely big happy family feeling. It also outlines that we probably should get a new Dash convention going at some point.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So it's let me know, everyone, if the audio is good, if anything else is good. There are some questions in the AMA podcast questions thing of the Dash Discord, which I'll hit on in just a little bit. But why don't we start with just like an overview of CrowdNode and the last, I guess, like year or so. So basically, you guys have not always, but not since the beginning of time, obviously, but like for a long time, offered this easy way for people to pool their funds to create a masternode and get a piece of that masternode reward. And in the last couple years, year or so, CrowdNode got a proposal in to basically focus on this as more than just a hobby. And then in that time, there's been a lot of growth on the platform, and there's been an integration into the Dash mobile wallets for a one-click staking kind of a solution, which may or may not be correlated to this kind of user growth and stuff. And then you guys were working on some trust minimized or trustless, depending on your definition, masternode share element. And that's kind of where we're up to today. So first off, in your experience, what has this last year or so been like? And what are your thoughts on like the user growth? How have you seen that been growing?
Well, we could keep it sort of factual, right? Because
yes.
In November last year, I have the numbers here, we had like 25,000 something Dash on the platform. And basically, after putting up the first video pitching the idea of a proposal to the Treasury, and also getting the support from DIF, just getting the proposal out there and getting the idea out there, we started seeing growth on the platform. So basically, putting some news out there that we were still, you could say, in business, still all in, and meaning to do lots more, gave traction. Yeah. But obviously, when we launched, you could say the first sort of major feature during the past year, the blockchain API, it exploded. It was within a few weeks, the platform grew several thousand in assets under management. So that was really correlating there when we saw an exponential growth.
And I think also if you zoom out in the grand scheme of things, the first year after we launched, we had a pretty good growth almost every month. We were starting new masternodes, and we got to 30 masternodes or something like that within about a year. Mm-hmm. And then rather abruptly, growth basically stopped. Mm. And then we just went sideways for almost 2 years. Mm. And so it's on that sideways motion of having 28, 29 masternodes plus minus a couple for a long time that we saw a very sharp increase. Mm. So, it's certainly correlated, and I dare to say it's probably also a causal relationship, even though I'm supposed to always emphasize that one doesn't imply the other. But
of course,
I think it's pretty clear.
Yeah, it's so the funny thing about this. So, get in your heads some of there's been like questions about like user growth and stuff. Do you have any good grasp on the numbers of users you have now, like the total number of like individuals, and also versus where that was before?
Well, the number of individuals after the API launch is hard to say, right? Because we don't have anything to identify people with except the address. But what we do have is 2,321 members. That's during these 4 years signed up, either with a UI user capacity or with the API, and currently just shy of 1,000 users still have a balance and are earning fractional dividends, fractional rewards.
Yeah.
So, and out of those, I also have the numbers for the API users, and there's with a positive balance and earning fractional rewards, that's 394 members. So that's the number. So basically, this year we've experienced a really nice growth, and that is provably because of the API and
Yeah,
the
of
launch
course.
of that. And I would say that the integration into the Android mobile wallet.
That was important.
Yeah,
It was
and
huge.
yeah, that's huge. And I'm crossing fingers that we'll see the same sort of, you could say, short escalation when the iPhone wallet at some point will be released, and also have the explore section where you can, one-click stake. And obviously the trustless. Once we launch that, I do expect to see us spinning up a lot of masternodes in a short time.
Yeah.
Uh,
So just thinking about those numbers,
Mhm.
it could be argued. So first off, with the API, obviously you said it muddles things a little bit, but so there might be a possibility that a single individual is running two different accounts or something like that, but it's
Yeah.
probably not a lot of them. It's still probably semi-accurate for a number. Is that a good thing to assume, I guess?
There is no way to assess. I mean, our service is in no way Sybil attack proof. If
As far as
we,
like metrics are concerned.
yeah, exactly. I mean, we won't claim that we don't have any fake accounts or double accounts or anything. I mean, this goes back to the fact that we don't do any KYC because we don't have to, at least for now. So far so good. But I think would you just sign up with the API? It also becomes very easy. And maybe if you have multiple devices, maybe you have multiple APIs. I mean, who knows how people arrange their things.
Yeah.
So it is hard to say. But I think you're probably right. Most users will probably be one user, one account, like one real user, one account.
Yeah.
And then maybe there's some users that might have not merged or coupled their API account with their sort of old account or traditional browser-based account, right? So there would be one person with two accounts. So I'm sure we have those as well.
Yeah, someone thinking the one old account might be the savings account, and then
exactly.
you would have your
Like
wallet on the
account.
mobile phone as a spending account that's easy to access. When you need to purchase
possibly a business account too. Like some people might, like if they have a dash balance, they might run that in a way to earn interest. But in which case, that probably counts as two individuals anyway, right? Because there's a business and the individual, depending on how it counts. But it seems like, based on like Masternode holder metrics across outside of CrowdNode, it seems like CrowdNode, as far as individual human beings, is approaching half the network, right? Because I've heard some estimates, I've seen some cluster analysis. Obviously, XKCD would know a lot more, but there might be somewhere around 1,000 individuals behind, or maybe a couple thousand, maybe 800. I don't know. These are just random numbers, but I've heard over the years different estimates kind of saying that there might be somewhere around 1,000 people behind the Masternode network, because there's around 4,000 masternodes. There's fewer enabled right now, but there's more that are, there are more that are collateralized. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting to see. It's like it's definitely the driver of individual adoption as far as like investment in the network. We did have one. Typically I charge for the questions and stuff, but I did get one in the people's chat. So what's the average balance of a registered user?
So we have roughly 1,000 members right now, and the balance is 60,000 dash. So
like
it's not that difficult piece of math to do, right?
Yeah.
So that's the average, and it does vary a lot.
The median is way lower.
Yes.
The average is being pulled up by a handful of rather big deposits.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So one thing I think is very interesting, and this has been a subject of discussion that kind of came up a little bit with the Twitter space we held yesterday, is the subject of voter participation, right? And something in order, I mean, obviously, pretty much everyone watching this knows, but even if they don't, in order to pass a proposal on the Dash network, you need a net 10% of masternodes to vote for it. So if there's 4,000 masternodes, obviously there's fewer that are enabled right now, and there's more that are collateralized, but let's just average that out and say 4,000 for simplicity's sake. Then you would need 400 yes votes to pass your proposal and no votes, or 500 yes and 100 no votes, and any combination of that. And it's become extremely difficult, I won't say extremely, but increasingly difficult to pass any proposal, even ones that are very popular, because just the percentage of voter participation is kind of low. But that threshold still applies despite that. And there's been discussions on like, well, how do we change it to maybe represent active voters and not like Binance that has 270 masternodes and never votes. But CrowdNode votes, right? And so first off, on average, what percentage, how many of CrowdNode's 60 nodes vote on a given election? Is it usually pretty high?
All of them vote.
All of them vote.
Yeah, all of them vote. There's a few exceptions to them actually voting, but they either vote yes, no, or abstain. But we did introduce the option that is, not available on the blockchain, but yes. You say do nothing, so it is available by not doing anything. Mm-hmm. So sometimes someone explicitly vote with their proportional shares to have their weight decision power to enforce that masternode proportionally to their vote does nothing. But besides that, they always vote accordingly, which means that on basically every cycle, all of the masternodes vote on all of the proposals.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, it's kind of interesting because, first off, this far outweigh this kind of by the market itself sort of democratizes the Dash network a little bit, because even though it's essentially 1,000 Dash equals one vote, and if you don't have 1,000 Dash, you don't really get a vote. But now there's a protocol level, right? But then now you get, not only can you vote if you have fewer than 1,000 Dash, yes, but also your votes are, by happy accident of the market, much more powerful. So yes. It's almost, it would be kind of funny to do some quick math, which I'm not very good at, but do some quick math to figure out the power of a vote, the Dash per vote ratio of a CrowdNode user versus a regular masternode, considering the voter participation of the network right now. So for example, 1,000 Dash does not on average give you one vote. It gets you a lot less because a lot of people don't vote, speaking in those terms, right? And with CrowdNode, it gets you 1,000 Dash gets you one vote pretty much. So yeah, it'd be fun to break that down a little bit.
Actually, when we participated in this get together that we had in Switzerland, as you may recall, we actually did a presentation that was mainly on this exact topic, because at the time we had very recently implemented the voting feature on the platform. We're still pretty proud of that, I think. I think it and we went through in that presentation both how it works and the statistics that we had already at that time, how many of our members actually vote, and then what is the corresponding, we called it amplification factor, which I think is exactly what you're referring to. The fact that let's say you have 100 Dash on CrowdNode, which if you don't go with us or a similar service, you would have nothing, no vote at all. And if you put it into our service, and let's say that the average proposal, treasury proposal, has maybe an amplification factor on the platform of 5. We can get back to what that means. That basically means that you get to vote as though you had and could vote with 500 Dash equivalent, right? Or let's say you have 3,000 Dash on CrowdNode. We need more of those people, by the way. Then you have, with a factor of 5, you would vote like you had 15 masternodes, even though if you ran them yourself, you only would control, 3, obviously.
Yeah.
So this amplification factor is actually, I think, a pretty big selling point for those who actually choose to take part in the governance system. I fully understand that a lot of people don't want to deal with it or don't have the time to look through all the proposals and so on. That's fine. But then because of the problem that you point out that you kind of you have 400 votes against you before you even start, I think something like this at least begins to remedy that problem. But like we discussed yesterday, you might also consider changing something at the protocol level for that problem. But that's another discussion. I think the amplification factor we have now is a real thing. And one thing that was true from the very start, and I think is still true, is that the smaller the proposal is in terms of the ask, the higher the amplification factor tends to be. In other words, the fewer CrowdNode members will bother to vote. So that means that if it's DCG compensation, which is always the biggest proposal, then the amplification factor is lower than if it's somebody who wants 50 Dash for 3 months to do something. So there the amplification factor might be, 10. So if you really have an opinion about that, then you can really have a loud voice.
Yeah, and this is going to be an interesting factor moving forward because right now it's a lot of small holders, obviously, and also people who are not as risk averse because there's always that custodial aspect to it. And some people just was like, nah, I'd rather not. Or they like, well, I'll just sell some Dash and put it into like some ETH staking pool or something instead. And they'll do something else for that. And I think that having a trustless kind of solution could really amplify a lot of, I'm sure there's a lot of people who, like I remember XKCD was encouraging people to put their money in CrowdNode so that they could like vote more and things like that. And so I think that a lot of people are not doing that because they have enough for their own masternode and they're just holding on to their own keys. But when they can hold on to their own keys and run it through CrowdNode, for example, I think that you could see a little bit of a shakeup like instantly. I think that this is the way I know about a trustless share setup, the way it's been designed so far. Obviously, there's some protocol level things that are coming down the road, and we can kind of talk about that later. But the way I see that, probably you'd get an immediate or near immediate, like a quick influx of a lot of users, and then a quick plateau as like it's kind of like the pent up demand for this. And then because of like some UX challenges, maybe not a lot of people doing that, like a small trickle of uptick, but like mostly you just see a bunch of pent up demand kind of go into that. Do you guys think that that's, I guess, reasonable to expect?
I surely hope so. I think we'll see.
Except the leveling off part.
Yeah, we'll continue to grow, right?
Yeah.
No, but
as a percentage, yes.
Yeah, sure.
But you're touching a point, right? It is a bit cumbersome to set it up, right? Even though we've tried to smoothen it as much as possible. So what we're actually working on right now, basically motivated by a couple of lovely people from the community, is to also allow the trustless staking to be accessible from an API. So imagine that you could basically not do all this signing manually, but have a wallet do it for you. That would also make it more instant, I suppose, not take so much time to do back and forth. So I'm really hoping to see a change eventually, next year in jumping from a yay we have trustless plateau to yay we have trustless implemented and integrated into wallets plateau. That would be, I think that would be amazing, and also really helpful. We are, ideally and ideologically, trustless shares would be a working thing natively on Dash, and we're getting there. But right now we're not there. So we've obviously built it because we think it's a missing feature, and whatever comes eventually will complement that, and potentially even, have a better offering on some parameters, but definitely evolving this trustless to make it as user friendly as possible, and ideally with the design right now, and this goes objectively to how you can set up a pay to script hash event, essentially a multi-sig collateral address. You have to trust at least one party, and that's the party that signs the funding transaction.
Yeah.
The last, right? Because once that funding transaction has been signed, but the refund transactions have not been signed, that party can, say, ha ha ha, I'll publish it, and now you have to give me, and hold the other participant ransom, whatever, right? So if you're doing this and not using CrowdNode, you would still have to trust someone in doing that setup natively right now. And I think that's people putting trust in us, being that, you could say, trusted third party. So people don't have to trust each other, but they all just have to trust us and CrowdNode in the process of setting it up. Ideally, on a platform level, this can be made in the future, so you don't have to trust any party, and that might even be a stronger, trustless setup.
So maybe, just to put a big underscore on the 2 points. The first point goes back to the voting and the voting amplification and all that. So it is implemented such that if you are part of if you have 400 dash on CrowdNode today, you get voting 400 votes, so to speak, on our platform, and with whatever amplification there is for a given thing. Now, if you instead have the 400 dash as part of a trustless masternode that we help set up, then you still get to vote with 400 sort of CrowdNode shares towards the total CrowdNode pool of votes. So the whole amplification, everything we talked about before, still applies. And there's also something about the payouts and getting, rewards on your rewards and so on that actually also works the same way as it does right now. But maybe we can talk more about that. But the other thing that Andreas raised was you also mentioned at the beginning whether this is trustless or reduced trust. The thing is, it really is trustless once it has been set up.
Yes.
But you do have to trust us while it's being set up, so to speak. So it's not like I deposit my Dash with CrowdNode like it is now, and now I have to trust CrowdNode forever to not screw up until the day I withdraw. With a trustless setup, what we can do now, what's possible at the protocol level, is that we can pool everything together, get all the signatures, and then launch the masternode, after which point it's literally out of our hands. And we rely on basically the multisig system for everybody's sort of possibility of returning all the money to all the Dash to whoever chipped in the first place in the right proportions, right? Of course. At that point, what happens is just that the dividends that come out, or the rewards that comes out from this masternode, floats back into sort of the regular CrowdNode thing, but the collateral is no longer at risk if we screw up somehow.
Yeah, of course.
That's the key distinction. So it is trustless, but only after it's set up.
And it's really desirable for a lot of reasons. For us, not to be a custodial service. For a lot of reasons, we really want trustless to take off and be ideally also most of our users with more than 100 Dash would convert in lump sums of 100 into trustless to entirely avoid this custodial service element.
The less money we have our hands on, the better.
Yeah. It's funny because eventually I think on a greater crypto sort of scheme, we're moving towards more fewer companies running stuff like this and more DeFi front ends, where instead of managing money and all this stuff and being a honeypot for hackers and all this horrible stuff and funds are SAFU and all that stuff, like that stuff is like in the past more or less, and we're starting to move towards all this is done on like a front end. And I guess Masternodes are a sort of a level. They were sort of a DeFi level, an early days DeFi level to that, even though the underlying technology hasn't been upgraded in a while. But then when we start having these, multi-sig kind of things, now we start moving to kind of a better level, especially once it becomes just a few clicks to get this done. And I'm sure like notifications to existing CrowdNode users, encouraging them to do the trustless setup sort of thing would really push that. It reminds me, so XKCD had a question in the AMA podcast questions channel thingy. He says, first off, he had a million questions in different formats, but first, will you put in a new proposal? That was the first one that he had.
So maybe, but not right now. I think
maybe you should explain what the current setup is and
exactly.
what happens.
So in the past year, we've got 12 cycles of funding, and we're in the middle of changing our owner structure to sign over the 12% of equity to diff. So that's in process, and we obviously want to sort of finish up this first round of features and promises. Albeit some shuffling has been made in terms of what I originally presented. We've had some other development proceed over some of the other features, but I sort of want Trustless to be completed, to be rolled out, potentially also the Trustless API, and sort of do a status on that. And it's also relevant to look not only at CrowdNode, but let's get back to that in just a moment. I think we want to see a continued growth, not only in terms of assets under management and members, but also grow the business, because that would benefit obviously the network diff in its entirety as well as us, of course. It's been a wonderful year. It's been an exciting year. It's been a busy year. I really enjoyed working this year full time on this project. So I'm not done with that. But I do need sort of a break from the attention of running cycles with the DAO and finish things up, you could say, before sort of starting a new cycle. And looking at the state of the sort of treasury and the exchange rate, it also makes sense to just lay off a while and have DCG pick up the additional funding that's there, while we potentially seek other investment opportunities. You could say that the DAO treasury funding of us was a pre-seed that could lead to other venture capital that might even grow the value of CrowdNode for diff's owner shares as well. But right now, just finish up and see Trustless staking succeed as well, and that would be a huge milestone, and then also get a bit of what you call it R&R, just relax and catch up on some of the things that may need some attention behind the scenes.
Yeah, I definitely get that. That's the next part of XKCD's question is, what is left to do after Trustless goes live? So first off, what's the status of the Trustless shares setup? I believe it's working fine on testnet right now. Is that correct?
Yes. It's done. It has been done for a couple of months now. It's sitting on testnet. You see us being rather insistent on not deploying it to mainnet until it's been tested enough. And it's hard to quantify what enough is. but enough is enough, and we're not there yet. And you could argue that it takes the high engaged super geeks to actually go to testnet and try something out here. Some of our strong supporters have tried it, gave some feedback. We sort of incorporated that, but it's basically sitting there done in its first version of it with the UI that works as best as possible. And potentially, as I could click a button and it would roll out to production, now if I click that button. But we don't want to do that. I think if the community doesn't go to test.crowdnode.io and try it out, we'll obviously release it later this year ourselves. Take some extra turns, test cycles on it and see if we can break it. But it's always, in my opinion, good to have someone else try to break it. Someone who hasn't,
fresh eyes.
Yes, when you work on it, you always tend to click the buttons and do everything in the right order. So fresh eyes on it is really important.
Well, I'll do it, and I'll make my wife do it too. So
awesome, great.
If she could figure it out, it's production ready then.
It's granny proof then.
Yeah. No, so what do people have to do to test it then?
So obviously you need some T-Dash. And there's different faucets for that, which actually reminds me that I think our
first wallet. What wallet do they need in order to do this?
So the guide is written with Dash Core as the wallet. But you could do it with basically any wallet that you can use to sign messages on. But you'd have to sort of transpile the guide that's made for Core into whatever wallet you want.
I think unless you're a super geek, if you're just a geek but not a super geek, I think the way to do it is to use Dash Qt. And run it with the testnet setting, obviously.
How do you do that, by the way? I haven't done that yet before.
So basically, just in runtime, when you run it, you can just, after Dash Qt, you write space, testnet equals 1 or something. There's a toggle that starts it up in testnet. And it's very easy to see because all the stuff that's usually blue is now orange. But, and then it actually doesn't have to sync up in order to do what you need to do.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. And that's nice because syncing up Dash Qt from the starting Genesis block, and that takes time in itself, right? That you probably need to start it up and then come back the next morning or something. You actually don't have to do that. In principle, you can do everything offline or while it's syncing, so it doesn't matter. And hopefully our website will tell you very explicitly what you copy, what you paste, when you replace your private key with your actual private key without, of course, pasting that into our platform and so on, like the critical steps. And if something goes wrong, if what you paste back into the website isn't, it cannot pass that, it should throw some kind of error message that hopefully makes you realize what went wrong. But it's fair to say that it is a little bit. There is an awful lot of copy pasting, and not all the steps are intuitive. So you really just have to follow the guide and do what it says.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's so for the record, before this was ever a thing, I did participate in a trust minimized pooled masternode before, but this was not through something like CrowdNode, but with a bunch of friends and doing that stuff. And it was, a little challenging, but also, for people familiar with this kind of stuff, it's doable. And yeah, I think especially if you have a guide, a person telling you do this now, do that now. And setting up, this is all through Electrum, I think. And so now it's, it seems pretty doable. So basically we're going to get some other people testing, and then it should be, I guess, good to go, production ready, and then we could start to, advertise that. And I think that just having CrowdNode give notices right on the site or whatever that just say, you know, try this, and then okay, you can try it, or that says like, hey, you have over 100 dash. Congratulations, you rich person, or whatever. Not anymore, of course, but congratulations.
You used to be a rich person.
Yes, of course.
2017. Oh my God, you were rich.
That was a good time. Good time back in the day. But like, okay, congratulations, you have 100 dash.
Yeah.
Do you want to migrate this to a trustless setup? And then oh, you have 200 dash now. Do you want to do that? Or like, just those kinds of things to edge the people who want to. And also like, so every time I send out some tweets on the Dash community Twitter account, I always, and I say, hey, you can get some staking stuff on CrowdNode, yay. And I always reply to that tweet with like the disclaimer of like, it's custodial. Make sure you are aware of the risks and blah, blah.
Yeah.
Always have to do that to be careful before, so you don't, just to be extra good. And I would love to be able to add to that, just from a conscience perspective, to be like, just so you know this, but you can do that, and then and also
Everybody wants that.
Yeah, because also I've been in the coming weeks we're gonna run some advertising campaigns on Brave browser to get people to download the wallet and start using it, including a big part of that is the staking element, and it just makes me feel a lot better about doing that long term, that it's not just like, hey, everyone use this custodial service, that it's like, oh, but there's an option too. And then if something horrible were to happen, which I don't think so, but if something horrible were to happen, it's still like, well, those are all the people who didn't use the trust minimize system, or it's like, well, at least it minimizes the individual losses to like 99 dash per. And so yeah, it makes me feel a lot better on that. But yeah.
And I think there's also, if you've never used multi-signature before, and I think this is probably true for a lot of people, even people with a lot of dash, because why would you, as a regular user? It's not something that you actually need. I think it can be a little bit intimidating to do. When you're doing it right, you get weird error messages. Which is unfortunate, but that's how it is right now. And I just think, if it were me, I would prefer, even before moving my own 100 dash to a trustless, I would actually prefer to try out the flow on testnet, just to see for myself that it ends up going the right place and that everything worked.
That makes
so
sense.
it's right now we need people to do it to find the bugs, if there are any bugs, or at least give us feedback on the UX. But I think also just from a completely selfish user perspective, before you do it with a lot of sort of real dash, play around on test dash.
Yeah, because the whole point is, if you do something wrong and it's moved to the, if you do something wrong with your signing and you lose your key, or I don't know what potentially could go wrong from a user perspective. It's a user. Expect everything can go wrong in the end, right? Let's think pessimistically here. But if something goes wrong and you're doing it wrong, and it's moved to the page hash script hash address, there's really nothing we can do about it. It's out of our hands, literally out of our hands, to do anything about it. Which also, throughout this, I'm just gonna sidetrack myself here. It's been really, really fun to build this and automate this process with the multi-sig addresses, and how to sort of challenge the users in the right order at the right point in time, and making that flow. But in the design process, we also discussed, should we add a parity signature, so that if 1 out of 10 participants or 1 out of 4 accidentally loses her private key, then we could go in a sort of NFM, 5 out of 4 or 9 out of 10, and sort of rewrite the last member that accidentally did something wrong, lost his or her key. Obviously, we ended up not doing that, but there is sort of the idea of adding something that would allow one participant to foobar and still recover if we do something like that eventually. But not now. But it did cross our minds to sort of you could say mitigate a risk of human error by a member.
Yeah, I mean that makes a lot of
Can
sense.
I just sort of underline why we aren't doing it? Because this was a real discussion we had. There's a lot of good arguments to do it for sure. And if we don't do it, sooner or later, somebody's going to screw up somehow and lose their dash. Not because of a problem with multisig or, the platform, but simply because, the dog ate the treasure or whatever the case may be, right? I mean, that is going to happen at some point. And at that point, we can't do anything about it to help people. If we do what Andreas is suggesting and have sort of an extra key, and we can do sort of an M of N where all users save the one whose dog ate the hardware wallet, and all backups of the seed phrase, because, it's a dog, then we would in principle be able to regenerate the eject transaction to a new address assigned that that the user provides, and then the money would not be lost. The disadvantage to doing that is multifold. I mean, first of all, it's more complicated to explain. Second of all, you can argue that then at that point it's actually no longer trustless. Then it would truly just be reduced trust, because in principle we could collude with all the other users in the pool except you to steal your money. I mean, why would we do it? But in principle we could. Whereas what we have now, that is impossible.
Yeah.
So there's a trade-off. There really is a trade-off. Do we want to make it foolproof or do we want to make it trustless? You can't have both.
Yeah. And I've noticed for my own self, like I'm much more, I don't know if I've ever lost any crypto through user error. I might have, but it would be like a very small amount, which, considering how chaotic my key management has been in the past, it's a miracle. But also I've never lost any from like hacks and thefts and things like that either. Okay. But I have a feeling that the average crypto user has a much higher chance of losing money due to user error than, actually being stolen on the non-custodial level. On the custodial level, it's just like they get Celsius all the time and things like that. Yeah. But yeah, that makes sense. We got
we actually didn't answer XKCD's question, right? What's left to do after Trustless?
Yeah.
So I think, in all fairness, let's just go back to that question.
Yeah, of course.
We do have some minor things that has been promised in these sort of 12-month cycles, and that's a tax overview to help that, and it's an ROI calculator and improved UI on the voting page, as sort of some smaller things that needs to be finalized and rolled out later this year. And then we had a sort of large block of a feature that correlates with the platform release, Evo release, to sort of incorporate identities, usernames, basically, which we haven't really gotten about to sort of build. And instead of doing that right now, I would rather suggest that we produce the Trustless API to make that easier and sort of round that off before opening and starting a new chapter, and then rather scope creep on the Trustless and build more features that makes that more user friendly, more use cases that can apply in real life before focusing on usernames. So that's sort of what's you could say left to do. We have plenty ideas as to what we could do more. And the thing that I'm actually eager to get started on is obviously dependent on the outcome of the high performance Masternode votes
Yeah,
in the site, right?
that was actually the next question.
Okay,
So
makes sense. Because
XKCD
basically, yeah, go.
XKCD asked, and then I'll one time asked in like the actual super chat thing too. So I'll kind of bundle them both together. But XKCD said something along the lines of question for CrowdNode: are they aware of the HPMN debate, and how's CrowdNode fit in? But now let me flip it over here. One time said, "Hi Peter, Andreas Rud. Sorry if I missed discussion. Once Dash platform is on mainnet, will CrowdNode be running upgraded hardware platform nodes? Will the level of upgraded hardware depend on whether the new collateral requirement for HPMN stays at 1K or increases to 4K to 10K? Does CrowdNode have a more efficient way to run upgraded nodes than most regular MNOs do?" And then the thing gets cut off a little bit there, but he said, "Does CrowdNode try to run minimum requirement specification nodes to maximize revenue, or do you increase the specifications above the minimum? Thanks." All right. What do you think?
Lots of questions there. So obviously
The whole HPMN thing. That's that's the summary.
Yeah. First off, if you're sitting out there as an MNO thinking, I don't have 4,000 or 10,000, depending on what it lands on, but you want to support the network and partake in the high performance masternode, then I would think CrowdNode would, maybe not next month, but eventually, meaning potentially soon in 2023, also, allow pooling and bundling trustlessly towards a high performance masternode. And obviously, I guess we will convert not logically all of our lump sums of either 4 or 10,000 into high performance masternodes, but a proportion. And while doing that, we'll obviously also increase and scale the servers that are running it. I think that goes without saying. But it all comes down to, what will the outcome of the vote be on the DAO. I personally see, as I believe that we need to focus on keeping the price of storing data as low as possible to attract more users to platform and its wonderful capabilities. That also caters for, I think, a 10K. But honestly, it doesn't really matter what I think. There will be a vote and an outcome, and if it's a 4K system, we'll support that, and also convert a proportion of our normal masternodes into that. We could even put a vote on the platform as to how much we should put into the one bucket or the other, and same goes for 10K, obviously. I don't think we've ever sort of deliberately staffed our masternodes on performance to optimize cost. Obviously, we're aware of one of the elements in our operational cost, and that is the masternodes. And we do have some running on a more expensive setup than others. So they're not all running the same plan, but that's basically because they're also hosted on from different providers. So that's got nothing to do with us trying to do it cheaper. It's more distributing and not putting all eggs in one basket.
Yeah, so that's as long as you have the trusted version, it might make sense to just automatically use the funds at whatever's most profitable, right? As far as like HPMN versus regular MN.
Yeah.
And then just because it's like funds you're dealing with and setting things up manually. Now, as far as when you start adding trustless things, it's a lot more static, in which case it might be more of an explicit choice. I mean, you could still remove the choice and just let them set up whatever is the most profitable at the time, and then just encourage them to reset them up if the profitability changes too much or something like that. But like, it also could be, that's the thing is with different masternode setups, I kind of, it's going to add some interesting dynamics for sure. because I'm sure there's a lot of just, well, I'll run this one or I'll run this one and I'll switch whichever is more profitable at the moment. But it could be that some people are like, I don't like this stupid platform. I'm just running core. You know, some people might only want to, even if it's not profitable, or some people might want to run platform ahead of time, and just because they anticipate higher revenue from platform fees and things, and they want to have a head up like a on running it in a efficient way rather than someone else. Oh, it's more profitable. Then they have to spend some time figuring out how to get it set up. It'll be quite interesting to see how that shakes out.
I think it's easy to overthink this. Basically,
which is that's what I do for a living. I don't know if you've noticed.
Well, basically, the system is designed to you know, there will become there will occur an equilibrium where we might see you know, a small difference in the APIs running, the revenue running a normal versus a high performance, and I think the high performance will have a slightly higher rewards. Also catering to the fact that it's more expensive to run that set of nodes. But we will see an equilibrium where it's more profitable to run either the one kind of nodes or the other kind of nodes, and that will sort of shift back and forth. And obviously, if we have 10K locked in a Trustless, if one decides to pull out, it's going to be a you know, significant amount of Dash leaving the platform instantly, and would have to be redeposited and put into a new setup. But that's just for CrowdNode members in that case, right? But yeah, I think the equilibrium will adjust itself. So it really essentially shouldn't matter from a profit perspective whether if you run the one thing or the other. So I love your point around the ideology around it. You know, if we don't have, what is it, around 90 high performance masternodes, the core won't kick in. I can't remember the exact number. More than 80, I think, right? But less than 100, but something in between to actually start platform. And I think to start platform, there will be, you know, more people going for the high performance masternodes to get platform up and running, and then eventually the equilibrium will probably oversteer. That's what I'm guessing, but who knows?
Yeah, of course. So it's kind of funny seeing like just one comment from Zero Cool on YouTube said, "I just loaded your faucet with 11K Dash." So we're getting people on the live show getting involved in testing, which is kind of why we do these kinds of things.
Yay!
I think it is interesting, like the different. I think the crowd, like, this is something I've been wrapping my head around for a while, and I guess before I launch into this stuff, I should remind everyone you can go to cointr.ee/thedesertlinks and leave a little Dash donation to get a super chat question, or if you have one of my NFTs, you can comment it in my Discord, and then I'll put that on the screen, just like I did one time's thing. Just start getting those in ahead of time. But anyway, the quest for crypto, like, crypto's a very interesting thing because I feel like business is more cut and dry in the old school world, right? Where it's like, I sell coffee, I'm going to start a business and sell coffee, this and that, I'm going to do this and that. And crypto is a combination of business, I guess, because these are all networks that people pay money to use, even though they're not businesses themselves, and there's businesses built on top of it. But more, it's like we're inventing a new natural resource in the digital age. And because of this strangeness to it, there's a lot of people making assumptions about what will take to market and what works when taken to market and what doesn't. And crypto, especially in the early days, was much of a payments type thing, or things like that, like a payments network, to a certain extent, some data. But that's mostly what it was. And the consumers were not payment people. The consumers were almost all speculators, and still remain to this day. Crypto is very heavy into the speculation, which is one reason why mobile wallets suck, other than like the Dash one pretty much, and Edge is okay too. And then the point of sale apps for merchants are even worse. And so, obviously like Salamantex and some others are decent, but like it's, AnyPay, Salamantex, what is it called? CTX. Other than that, it's like garbage, right? So it's kind of crazy to see this, Dash has gotten pretty far in a lot of ways. And at the same time, the thing it focuses on, which is a secure, private, decentralized, instant, efficient payment network, is used very little compared to what it could be. And it's kind of funny looking around what the killer app is. So far, the best killer app for Dash, other than in 2017 as a speculative investment vehicle, and for the Masternode boom, has been CrowdNode. I think CrowdNode is the first app or use case that is relatively successful as far as Dash is concerned, because people want to earn interest on stuff. They want to stack and save. They want to stack and save crypto. And obviously they don't care that it's entirely trustless. They'd rather have a solid proven crypto that's been around forever and just earn on that stably without, all the DeFi stuff, all the craziness and the risk of that. And so it is kind of fascinating to watch the growth of CrowdNode as a killer app. And so part of what we're doing is in advertising the mobile wallet is like the one-click staking. I think is a huge part of it. Not only buy in wallet, but then stake in wallet. And so we've seen CrowdNode's growth from just inside community rumors, and then maybe they're looking through the app and they're like, oh, what's this? But there's been very little actual awareness about that CrowdNode even exists, and very little marketing and stuff. Been tweeting about it and oh, look, you can stake, but that's just like that small. There's still, as far as like advertising. And so when we get into advertising this, I wonder what the user growth potential might be, especially once you have like trust minimized solutions. So people that are like, I don't want to exactly like give up my money on this, or it's not. Now you have a solution. So I'm very excited to see what the growth potential is for Dash, because Dash has been marketed for a payments thing, I think prematurely, because it was just difficult to use it. As someone who's been using it for 6 years, it's not like it takes like doing. Today, you have Dash Direct, you have merchant directory in the map, you have a bunch of other things go on. Bitrefill is great, and I think that when you start marketing these things, we're going to start to see user growth in some interesting ways, and I think that CrowdNode's probably going to lead the charge on that.
Let's hope so. I think you're being very kind, and of course it sounds great. But we can also think of it this way. A year ago we had 30,000 Dash on the platform, and now we have 60,000. But that's out of what's the total float of Dash? 10 million or something. Mm-hmm. It's the market potentially is a heck of a lot bigger than what we have gotten in 4 years, right? Mm-hmm. So in a sense, we've gotten very far, and I think we're pretty proud of what has happened so far, and also thankful, especially the last year, for direct support from also treasury funding and so on. But on the other hand, it's also not that big of a percentage of the total addressable market that we've managed to accrue. Mm-hmm. And I think my personal take is that the main reason is that people simply do the calculation in their head. They say, okay, I have, whatever, 100 Dash lying around, or 50 or 1,500. It doesn't really matter. And I can put them on CrowdNode, and that there is some non-zero associated risk with doing that. And for that risk, I get, a few percent per year. And of course, it changes all the time what it is, but, on the order of 5 or 6%. Is the risk that I somehow screw up, or they screw up, or I lose my Dash, is that really smaller than 6% per year? Mm-hmm. And if the outcome of that calculation isn't pretty resounding, yeah, that still looks attractive to me, I won't, right?
Yeah.
And my hope, and I hope I'm right, is that once we have this Trustless thing up and running, that calculation looks way more attractive. And so the addressable market goes from whatever it is today, 100K Dash, to hopefully a lot more, maybe an order of magnitude more.
Yeah, I would think so.
And at that point, we could be a real business, even at $40 per dash. But hopefully, at that point, we'll be at $400 per dash, and everybody will be happy. Well, more happy than they are now.
And I think it's interesting to point out, and we do have a couple other super chats, which I'll jump to in a second. But it's interesting to point out that the staking rewards across the board, it's like usually, in fact, I heard my good friend Scott Cunningham, who's been on this podcast a lot, and he's a Dash user and fan. He's also, I heard him say something like along the lines of, any staking rewards over 5% is probably a scam. And there's a lot of nuance that is lost in that statement, but I think it's largely correct, where a lot of things just, you're either in a high inflation coin where even though you get a lot of that inflation, it's still like not good, or it's like a bootstrap phase, or it's very high risk, or, there's a bunch of things.
Or an outright scam.
Yeah, or, it's about to be rugged. And so when you're looking at... I'm
tempted to say BitConnect.
Yeah. That's kind of funny. So how familiar are you guys with Thorchain and the way that works?
I'm fairly familiar with it, although I haven't paid attention to it at least the last month, 2 months, I think.
Yeah, it's so.
But I did talk into through in one of my videos that we might as a feature for the next 12 months look into to doing a sort of a you could log into the platform and proportionally put a stake in Thorchain in a liquidity pool, or you could stake normally. But I think
there's I think that honestly that could solve a lot of things, because I think that at some point when you have like massive user growth, the ROI is going to go way down, and then it's not going to be attractive anymore. But then there's other uses for the capital in Dash to be able to earn on it, for example, through Thorchain. And it would be an annoying thing for a wallet to have to integrate some random Thorchain front end as well as CrowdNode. But if CrowdNode did both, then that would be a massive thing. And so, but to really quick summarize the way, the way Dash staking works right now is like, well, you have a Masternode, you have 1,000 Dash, you hold on to your keys, and you never don't control your funds, and then you get a percentage back, just consistent relative to the other participants. And it's relatively stable and safe and secure if you hold your own keys, right? Now with Thorchain, first off, it is I would call it trustless, because you don't trust a centralized third party, but you do send funds into a pool. And even though it's automated that you get it back, there's still like a pool, and there's like a risk of a hack. And there have been hacks in the past, although that was before mainnet, that was on ChaosNet, as they called it. And so there's more risk than fully trustless, but it's still there. But the biggest risk is the ROI risk, because your asset gets split 50-50 instantly into Rune and, let's just say, Dash in this case. And then every time the price of one spikes, then some of it gets automatically sold and rebalanced. Or if it drops, it does that. And they call it impermanent loss. And there's some impermanent loss protection. But still, I've noticed, because I've been providing liquidity for well over a year on Thorchain, like a year and a half at this point. And not all of my positions are above where if I just held the asset separately, it would be. Like, there's some risk, even though you get ROI, you lose it. So there's that added risk loss. And so just looking at the front end right now, so Ethereum's at, not counting this risk, by the way, Ethereum's at 4.46%. BUSD, which is the Binance USD stablecoin, is at 9.02%. BTC is at 2.5%. So just think about this. If you want to stake native Bitcoin and get ROI on Thorchain, you only get 2.5%. plus you have this extra risk, a smaller like hack risk, I guess, very small. But then you also have that impermanent loss risk, which could really end up making it much less attractive for you. And so the CrowdNode, the Masternode, and then thereby CrowdNode benefits are much better as far as I'm concerned. As far as like you get your stable, what is it, 6 to 7% right now, and although that might go down when more people get in. So having those two options side by side might be pretty interesting, because you always have less liquidity or fewer stakers chasing after the same revenue on either side, because there's always both side by side.
I mean, if I can add to the list of arguments why this might be interesting, I think. I mean, I think we can all agree that what we really need in Dash is to revitalize the whole project would be basically an uptick in people coming in, and in a bull market, people are coming into crypto, and Dash is not the first place they would look, because we're not in the top 10 anymore, to put it mildly. So if you want to get new people in, they at least at the present time, they almost have to come from elsewhere in the crypto community. And so I bet there are a lot of people out there who basically have left Dash for dead, even though I would argue that it's not, but they don't know. And they might be interested in Thorchain, not just because it's a new shiny thing, but also because it has a genuine use case. And that might be sort of a gateway drug towards Dash. I'm not in any way suggesting that people will go out and sell all their Ethereum and buy Dash for the whole lot, but some might take an interest and take a second look, and the things that speak for Dash, like we talked about yesterday at the Twitter space with the governance and the platform and all that stuff. Besides, of course, the payments that we still think is a very solid system, right?
Yes, of course.
And everything we can do to raise awareness of Dash in the crypto community can only be good for Dash.
Yeah.
Right?
Of course.
I mean, you back in the day, you were one of the sort of misinformation fighters, right? In the whole FUD days. But these days, nobody even bothers to spread FUD about Dash anymore, because nobody cares.
Yeah.
That's almost worse.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
So anything we can do to raise awareness of Dash in the other coin communities, I think would be could have a pretty outsized impact.
Yeah, and I think there's a few ways of doing this. First off, the entire reason I started this channel, I had sort of two reasons at the beginning. The first one was people were sad that they thought the Dash podcast was going away, because it was on the Dash News channel, which is part of Dash Force. And when Dash Force was no longer funded, it was like, well, we're not going to do this for free. Or rather, Mark didn't want to do it for free, and he didn't want to give me control over the channel, but that's a different story. And then I just wanted to have a platform to keep doing the Dash podcast. That's part of it. The other part of it was I realized that I had done a lot of work in the wrong direction by trying to promote the project as like a shill, sort of. Not like a shill, but like I figured that there was better ways of doing it, and other projects had advocates who were like respected people or coin agnostic people who were still secretly shills for their favorite project over here. And I thought that, well, maybe if I expand, if I just become crypto generic, I kind of get people in, and then they start seeing the Dash. I'm like, oh, okay. And since then, of course, things have like evolved a little bit, and I've become much more, I've kind of used it as like something to keep myself honest, because before it's like, oh, Dash is great, but now I like look into everything, so I make sure that if I still believe Dash is great, I have the information to make that clear. And I'll also doing a million other things. The crypto space is huge, but that is kind of important to like keep going in other shows, keep doing other things. And I'm gonna do the Resurrect the Living on Crypto series in January and show people how to live on a few different cryptos. And of course, Dash is going to be favorably featured there, not because of anything explicit, but just because it's I still mostly use Dash for my bills and stuff because it's the easiest so far. So I get all that. Now, the other thing I think is going to be really so number one, get into coin agnostic spaces as a fan of all these other projects and still liking Dash. But the other thing is build more undeniable end user projects that happen to use Dash and market those to crypto consumers and other consumers directly. And so right now, CrowdNode is a Dash staking platform, and it's only for Dash users or Dash community members or people who have the Dash wallet. Now, if I can market the Dash wallet as something you can also stake right in, people might get the wallet, log into Coinbase or whatever, buy Dash, spend some, put it in CrowdNode and get their interest and spend that. Now you have that kind of funnel. It's still a bit of an abstract funnel. What I would suggest, I mean, obviously, you guys do what you want, but I think that CrowdNode might be a great staking platform, kind of more coin agnostic staking platform, if you kind of can envision that. So first off, you put like a link, like there's a few of these like buy Dash with buy crypto with a credit card kind of widgets you can just put right on the site that you don't have to like do any of this stuff yourself. So one could always do that to like get people in to do that. Also, if it's, let's just say just Dash and Thorchain, just Masternodes and Thorchain, you can, as a Thorchain front end, be like deposit Bitcoin, start doing that. You can swap it right there, so people don't have to find a way to get Dash to start using it. But then you also have like the staking options like right there, and it could just be something where it's just like, or staking central that has, it's not just like what are the rates on these coins, but also have like a portal, an information portal of like what use are these coins. It's like the non-scammy DeFi sort of. It's like the non-scammy, like here's where you go to invest and earn, and here's some information on how to do this and kind of run all the thing. And of course, you know, it's easy to give Dash like a prime seat there where it's just like stake this and spend it anywhere, and you know, that kind of thing. So just some thoughts on that, huh?
Yeah, well, actually, we put some more ideas on the table, but in the first video I did, one of the long prospects of getting some time to work on CrowdNode, per se, getting the funding so I could go full time on it, and also getting our beloved investment vehicle Diff on board, because when Diff is on board, it really doesn't make anything difficult in terms of deciding whether we should branch into other coins as well. Because if we do that and it's successful, then Dash will still benefit from it, because CrowdNode's turnover will increase, profitability, and in turn Diff will earn money on that, meaning the network earns money on it. So whereas if we didn't get the funding, didn't hand equity over to Diff, and would branch out to other coins, someone in the community might say, "Oh my God, now they're not loyal to Dash anymore, loyal to Familiar, right?" But right now we would still be loyal to Dash, essentially even more so by growing our business, by branching out into other things, because Diff would get their equal share. In turn, all of us would get our equal share of it, right? So yeah, I love the ideas. I would love to get more time to build more, and it's branching into other coins is on the table for some next steps indeed.
Yeah,
I'm not sure we'll be doing like a one-stop shop for buying as well. There's other good companies that provide that service.
yeah.
But the Thorchain and the whole idea around what you're mentioning with some of the drawbacks, the ideal is to have a funding of liquidity pools to Thorchain that makes the liquidity big enough to not see those sort of price slides and issues that may occur when forcefully being traded back and forth. So the higher the liquidity pool mass on Dash gets, the better it is, not only for the return the investment you put in it. That's obvious that increases the bigger the pool is, but also, isolated from a CrowdNode as a company that ideally should be profitable. If someone wants to move from staking into Thor chain and earning more money there, higher reward, why would we hand that over to a third party instead of actually trying to keep the member on our platform, just in a different size and shape, right? So
yeah, and so for me, principally, I think the biggest advantage of having and by the way, Thorchain is, I believe, they just signaled the vote to add single-sided LPing, as they call it, where now you can deposit, for example, Bitcoin and earn only Bitcoin and not get the asset split or that risk associated. They figured a way to get that done. So it's much more analogous to CrowdNode now, except I'm sure much lower. If like 2.5% is the pool like ROI, for the split asset Bitcoin, it's probably like 1% or lower for like the actual raw interest on that. So I think that it just having CrowdNode be able to do both, I think would mostly the biggest advantage, I think, is just so that the UI in the wallet is just super easy now. That now you don't have to integrate a separate front end. You just staking, and now there's two buttons instead, like this or that, and you go, and then it just goes. I think that's the biggest thing. But also having like an all-in-one staking, like a staking platform and earning platform rather than just a Dash earning platform, might make sense. It will be also interesting to see. I mean, obviously, like revenue, like equity gets like an equity sharing thing with the diff is fun. It might be interesting to think about a revenue sharing thing, not with the diff, but with Dash, like in a way that like 10% of net profit goes back into people who explicitly stake Dash. So kind of giving Dash like an extra benefit to like the users, kind of. Not just something that just popped into my head. Obviously, there's a lot of thinking on that, but stuff like that could be interesting to play around with, right?
There's a lot. There's popcorn going on. Well, it does make me recall the idea of actually asking the treasury for funding. Let's say, I don't know, some amount of Dash that would go straight into an increase in API, right? So to attract new users, a new user base to Dash, we would pump it up so it would be like, what do I know, 12% or 15%.
Not more than 10, because then it's a scam.
No, yeah, that's right. But to a level where Dash sort of goes to the top of the list of platforms that pays the most when you stake to attract a new user base, and then eventually, they once they're the first fix is for free, right? But once they've been in the loop for X period of time, we would go back to only getting the normal rewards. But we would maybe increase awareness on that.
So and I think that would be fantastic to combine with a well-oiled advertising campaign from, for example, the Marketing Hub. And like right now we're starting with some Brave ads and things. We did the Cointelegraph thing. I think once we have some more better ideas on how to do this, it would be great to do the incentivization CrowdNode proposal combined with like a big advertising push. Hopefully just as we start to get more into bull market sentiments, so then people start coming back on, and then, oh, this cool username system, I can spend it here, and then it just, the rest becomes interesting. That'll be a good plan.
Yeah, we could be a vehicle to assist that journey anyways, right? We'd be happy to do that.
Yeah. Well, let me hit on the super chat stuff. We had a couple of those questions before we end up wrapping this thing up. So Greatwolf said, quick question, more of a feature request. Can CrowdNode allow changing withdrawal address if the user empties out their CrowdNode account first, aka effectively as if it's a new account with zero balance? I think I asked about this a long time ago.
Oh yeah. So yes, if you withdraw everything, we can reset the address and you can put in a new one. So, but the whole correct thing is you have to withdraw everything first to the old address before putting in a new address.
Yeah, that makes sense. And
Yeah.
then one time, just said, suppose the hypothetical possible idea of HPMN collateral time lock requirements were to be implemented instead of just increasing the collateral amounts. Would that make it more of a problem for CrowdNode to run HPMNs? Thanks for the answers. Cheers.
Well, no, I don't think it would make it a problem. Yeah, well, you could, if everybody wants to withdraw, everything, and we have one or more high performance masternodes that has a time lock, then yes, it's a problem, obviously. But if we don't see that sort of disaster scenario that all of our members run away, then having some high performance masternodes, but obviously a fraction that is not in high performance masternodes, but in normal masternodes that are not locked, doesn't have a lock time on the blockchain, would make it possible to avoid any sort of lock in. But
the other aspect of that is that maybe, depending on sort of how the chips fall, if the high performance masternode setup is done in the way we do the trustless now, then the time lock part of it is sort of built in. I mean, we didn't actually touch upon this earlier when we talked about how we do the regular masternodes trustlessly right now. But the way it's actually structured is, you don't only pledge a certain amount, like 400 or 100 or whatever. You also actually commit to a time period, and so you can only we call it eject, but you can only sort of push back the collateral to all the stakers and use that eject transaction after the time lock period. You pass the block number XYZ, right? And then we provide a sort of emergency eject that you can use at any time, so that doesn't have a time lock, but then it has a penalty, so that you're disincentivized to do that, because it's a pain in the neck for all the other users, and actually also for us, but mostly for the other users. That then all of a sudden, ahead of time, they get their dash back, and now they have to join a new pool and do signing again, and so on. And maybe depending on how this high performance masternode stuff ends up being implemented, there could be something similar, where you could maybe eject ahead of time and take some kind of penalty, or wait until the time lock period runs out and then get your collateral back with no penalty.
Yeah, I mean, that makes
something
sense.
like that, I think, would be a good architecture for that.
Yeah, lots of hypotheticals out there. I think we're probably running towards the end of this thing. Do you guys have any final words real quick before we wrap it up?
Well, back to the whole point, try it, right?
Yeah.
Give us feedback, because I really want to push this to mainnet. I have no interest in just letting it sit there while I'm working on other features, which is basically what I'm doing right now. But I don't want to push it before getting some feedback and before having someone try to click the buttons. That's not me, Peter, or Thomas, or the usual gang of true believers, fans we have out there that tries our new stuff always. And thanks, you know who you are. So that would be amazing to get sort of just a small hype going. I do know that testnet has been in a rocket shape periodically in the past couple of months, but it's still possible to try it out and give us some feedback. So put that to the grapevine. Let's spread that, and then subsequently we'll launch to mainnet and see a remarkable growth again. Jump to a new plateau and convert several of our existing masternodes into trustless as well, and reduce the risk, perceived risk, and move away at least from being that much of a custodial service provider, and sleep better at night. And you can it's good for so many things. So please
Yeah.
test it. Please give feedback, and let's make it as good as possible and deploy to mainnet ASAP.
Sounds good to me. All right. Well, thanks very much for being on. Everyone, follow guys. I believe the Twitter handle's @CrowdNode, right? And anything cool that CrowdNode does, I make sure it gets trumpeted everywhere. Make sure you go to crowdnode.io. That I believe that's the website, right? .io.
Yes, but also .com actually. So
Interesting.
Yes.
Or in the Dash wallet, which you go to dash.org/downloads, you get the mobile wallet under the Explore button, the little like compassy thingy, which shows where you can like buy it from ATMs and like merchants around you. There's a stake feature in there that gives a little APY calculator too, which is it's sometimes, you know, depending on like what's going on, it's a little strange looking. I remember someone had like a 3,000% API bug at one point a while back, but like it's usually pretty accurate because I check against XKCD's numbers. So yeah, go ahead and try that out. Yeah, and it will be fun. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for a great year also,
Yeah.
worth mentioning. And thanks for having us on today's podcast, Joel.
Yes, and so thanks everyone for watching. Please hit the like button on your way out and subscribe. I should also note that in next month, I'm doing another episode of the Dash podcast, which will be number 200. Done 200 of these, which is pretty insane to think. And so for that one, like the Christmas, it's hopefully going to be the Christmas special, the Evo special, and the 200 episode special all in one. So I'll try to make something nice and big, make a big group thing. I'll be better prepared to deal with group people next time. And we'll have a big old party one. And then speaking of party, now is usually the traditional time for the after party. Tonight, I'm not able to attend, regrettably. I have a bunch of different things going on. But start asking around in like the Discord, hey, where's the after party? Can someone DM me the after party link? Or message me. I might not answer right away, but I'll try to get you in. And then there's usually a fun group of people that are there chatting, hanging out, things like that. At some point, I might start doing a after party as a public like Twitter space, kind of like run that. So it's like a public after party. But then when we go to what they call a ball cream hour, then that's the private one. So we have to be careful for that one. And if you know, you know. All right.
Oh, yes.
Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.